Ready?
Nod. Your meeting, Mr. Chair.
Very much. Welcome, councillors, to the Ordinary Council meeting of the 18th of August 2020. Just a reminder that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Please be patient. Electronic meetings are different to face-to-face. You'll be invited to speak by the meeting coordinator as we go along. That's me. I'll first of all call for any apologies for absence.
No apologies.
Thank you very much. The council meeting has been live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you're respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. The City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording will be made for administrative purposes. Councillors, I'd like to welcome Catherine Thornley, the Wantama Aged Care Chaplain, who's here with us tonight. Thank you very, very much, Catherine.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here tonight, and it's my privilege to come along and say the prayer before the meeting. So thank you. So let us pray. Dear Lord, may we pause for a moment. May we take a deep breath in and pause again as our minds and spirits settle for this evening's meeting. I ask that you bless this meeting as the council members and community members work for our town of Orange and its surrounding areas. I ask that you bless them in their plans. I ask that you bless them in all of their conversations. I ask that you bless them in their actions. And finally, please bless them in all of their courageous decisions they need to make. May the night be a night full of rich interactions and deep conversations. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks very much, Catherine. Catherine said that she'd love to stay with us tonight, but she's got a lot of other important engagements later on the scene.
Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Thanks very much. I'd like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people, who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders, both past and present, of the Wiradjuri Nation, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who may be present. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter or consideration at the council meeting this evening? Thank you. There are no mayoral minutes. There are no speakers for open forum. So I go down to item 3.1, which is confirmation of minutes of the ordinary meeting of Orange City Council held on the 11th.
Move the minutes, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Whitten, second Councillor Munro.
I've got a question as regards to in 5.2 in the minutes. It's just a matter arising out of them. My first question is that is, and I hope when the report comes back to us, is we're going to get a date when that report fronted council on just about 7 years ago. There was a second report. When did it come in front of council? If it did come in front of council, the demolition report previously, did it come in front of council?
Chair, we'll have to clarify that in our report.
Yeah, so we'll have the report next meeting.
That's extremely worrying, Mr Mayor, because I know when you look at it, and it's been said to me by people in the general public, it appears that it appears when you have a look at the previous council that there's, with the land sales and all those type of things, people have got the concept that, oh, hang on, council are going to develop it. Well, you know, when you look at the situation of Victoria Street going straight through the other side, and you see blocks to the other side, and you see the disappearance of blocks out on Plymouth Valley, people are starting to ask questions, and that's what I want to see answered, to those type of things there.
We'll have that report back for the next
Today, I
meeting.
saw two football field teams in their training.
Good. So we'll have that report back for the next meeting and we can
thank
discuss
you.
that. Thank you. All in favour? Against? Thank you. There are no notices of motion or notices of rescission. We move down to general reports. 5.1 are the recommendations and resolutions for policy committees.
Recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Move, Councillor. Please blank then.
Councillor
Nugent and second Councillor Taylor. Thank you. All in favour?
I got one.
What one?
No, I'll come out of that. Mine is to the Director of Technical Services. It is regarding the Southern Feeder Road.
What items
There
is
is there is a concern on the Southern Feeder as regards to a discussion that we had or you had with.
Councillor Duffy, just tell us what items so we're all on the same page.
It's on the website.
It's page 24,
I
Mr
assume
Mayor.
it's out of
It's when I asked a question about the Ploughman's Lane. Southern
Hey,
Feeder.
Thanks.
No, it's
Isn't it?
getting towards Ploughman's Lane with the Southern Feeder with the shooters and the left in and left out. Question I'll have for it.
Hold it, you've lost us all here.
Shooters and fishers.
Explain. The director knows where I'm coming from.
Well, I'm glad he does because we don't.
No, you've lost us all. You just,
Can you translate?
Mr. Greenham, can you sort of give us your
Thank you.
on what
late.
we're doing?
We got it out.
Yeah. There had been discussions with the Shooters Club that access off of Anson Street at the moment.
Oh, okay. That's
through
a small ball club.
the small ball Shooters Club or Rifle Club.
Right.
So we did say that where their access is at the moment is in the natural cut and fill line of the new Southern Feeder Road, and we would supply a left in, left out access onto that. That detail is not in the concept plan of the RAF, but it will form part of the final road.
Not showing that on the website.
No,
The old plans on the council website, which were Giles' days and Michelle Catlin days, those plans are still there on the website. Now, the design plans on that, which doesn't show discussions you had with them.
the design has developed from there though. Yeah.
I'm sure Mr. Greenham will update the website with showing a road going into that. Perhaps it would be almost saying once we've got the funding and we go through that next section, section 4, I think there'll be extensive discussions about whether you can have a rifle range right next to a major road. All in favour? Yes, thank you. Now, 5.2 is the Statement of Investments, July 2020.
Move the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Moved Councillor Whitten, second Councillor Munro. All in favour? Thank you. 5.3 is an update on outstanding resolutions of council.
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Moved Councillor Munro, seconded Councillor Arno. Look, just once again, can I say I find this an excellent document. It keeps us up to date and it's a good reminder of resolutions and things that have come up, and it's better to converse with staff where we're up to with certain things. So if you can pass through to all your staff, I think it's a very valuable report. All in favour? Against? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I just have a matter arising out of this, or it might be a new one? On Saturday, I was out at Jack Abram Park watching a bit of football. I noticed that all the fields have shelters around them for the inclement weather, except the main field, which we had visiting teams from Sydney. There's seating there, but there's no actual shelters. I just would have thought that we would have put. We did the 10. We did the 10. We were only going to do 2. We did the 10. Why didn't we do the other 2 for the main field where we have visitors coming from Sydney? And on Saturday, they needed it because they're standing. They were sitting out in the rain, the reserves. Now I know other codes mightn't have it, whatever. But I do think when we've got visiting teams up from Sydney, if they've seen shelters on all the other grounds, why isn't it on the main fields? It's a question.
Good point.
Mr. Morley, you want to address that point? Thank you.
Yeah, no, good
Not that
question.
bad in Orange, mate.
No, it wasn't on Saturday. It was
They
just.
need to harden up.
Might have to this Saturday. Can we put them up by this Saturday?
Yeah,
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've been working with ODFA for a number of years on the development of Brabham and in particular shelters out there. I know there were some proposals for some shelters that I heard myself repeating through a speaker. Some shelters on Bernie Steadman Oval, which is the main oval. So we have a meeting next week with ODFA to work through that for various reasons. That didn't proceed a number of years ago. When we worked with ODFA to establish the 12 shelters, that was the priority. priority again this year, council will be aware, is the upgrade of the amenities building. They're the only two recent things that have come before council.
Thanks, Mr. Long. Can I just suggest this needs heavy lobbying of Councillor Mileto?
I understand that, but why are there seats there with no shelters over it? Where did we fall short?
There's been seating at that was the original design for.
So
for
when we did the budget last year and we were going to do one shelter for 10 years, we brought it forward. We did all the shelters. Were those not in? Bernie Stedman was not included in those shelters.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But I'm going to suggest here that you have serious discussions with Councillor Mileto after the meeting tonight and get us a way forward here. I think it's a good point.
I'm still getting over get my ears burned on the weekend from the people from Sydney. Where
All right, all in favour?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to. If there's no money in the budget, or if there's no, is there any money in the budget to build those shelters?
No.
Right. So if we were going to put $10,000 each, I take it they're exactly the same shelter. I'd have to bring it to the court.
I think the design for those ones would be different to the ones that are on the field. Council allocated $250,000 to Brabham to upgrade the amenities this year.
I get that, but that's nowhere near the shelters, is it?
No, but I'm just saying that was the priority that came to council.
Right, and that was but the shelters I only know. Like I actually didn't know. I only noticed them on Saturday when it was pointed out to me that they were sitting in the rain.
It's entirely a matter for council.
If I can bring to the quarterly budget.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep, bring it forward. And don't forget there's a number of particularly state grants that we'll be looking at over the next 6 months. That it might fit into that.
Yep,
might fit into it. Okay. 5.4 is community committees. First of all, councillor membership and charters.
Mr. Chair, I'll ask Mr. Redmond to make himself available at the lectern just to run this show, if you wouldn't mind, as the acting director. Chair, we're seeking replacements for Councillor Prevotera. Some of the resignations by Councillor McRae from committees.
Yep. So these are just community committees.
Yep, we are not doing any external committees today. Correct, Mr. Redmond?
Yep. So, councillor, these are just these committees. There's not all the other committees. I know there's some vacancies on the Australia Day Committee and a few others we need to address and look at, but these are just these committees that Councillor Prevotera was on and Councillor McRae. So over to you, Mr. Redmond.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So what we need to deal with is on page 75 in the right-hand column. We'll give some guidance about the fill. We'll further take nominations from the floor for.
So the first one is the Spring Hill Community Committee. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do we have any willing volunteers? You nominate yourself. Don't be shy.
Nominating,
done.
Nominating, but thanks. But if I'd be interested in.
sorry,
when are they? Sorry, Councillor.
through you, Mr. Chair. I can help you with regard to the Spring Hill meeting. It's generally held of a Thursday at 5:30 p.m.
Okay. Hey, you're right. You're
It's
nominating.
quarterly.
Yeah, I'll nominate for that one.
Thank you very much.
Second?
Move second. Approved.
Councillor Hemming seconded it, and we.
Eugene is successful in his bid for the Spring Hill Committee.
The next one is the Tidy Towns Committee.
Hi, Councillor Hamling.
Can I make a comment on that?
No.
I'd like to make
When
a
they
comment.
asked you a question, okay?
Someone asked me a question. Thank you.
No, they haven't.
They haven't.
I'll ask you a
Yes,
question
they
in the last time in a minute, but I want nominations first.
Kevin, what's Tidy Towns involved?
Thank you, Councillor. I'm glad you asked that. I heard that.
Could you give us a...
No one was going to ask that. I've had discussions with the number of staff members, and Tidy Towns is more as an informative type organisation, which is very well run by the council, especially our current employee, Roger Smith. He's exceptional, actually. And it's more or less an informative, and I'd probably much rather see the charter change where it says one or more councillors. Because I think, a lot of the times, a number of times we met informally. Over around this moment, he's taken control and met with their visitors and those types of judges and those types of things, which I think for this, it's a very good result because he's also got other members to call.
I will move that the Tidy Towns Community Committee be one councillor.
The charter be amended to one or more. Yep.
One or more. And can I just, and second to Councillor Hamley, all in favour? Can I just remind, don't forget that any of the council committees, councillors are welcome to attend at any time they wish. Okay? Right, we move on to, it was a great speech, Councillor Duffy, great victory there. Environmental Sustainability Community Committee. Chairperson is Councillor Nugent, and there's 4 councillors, one of who is the chairperson. We need 2 councillors here, and it is quite an important committee.
This committee, Mr Chair, meets on a Friday morning at 8 o'clock, about once every 2 months.
Have any volunteers or anyone jumping out of their seats here?
You're on it. Need to.
I will nominate myself formally on it. I'm on any committee anyhow, but I will nominate formally to be on it. We got any other persons?
And we would need to change the charter if it's only you, Mr Mayor. You overall the committee, so you do it. We'll change the charter. We won't go and debate it at the committee. So we do that at the
next meeting.
Point of clarification, Mr Mayor. Does I know of other councillors.
Yes, but I can be a nominated person also. Yeah, but
I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
so there is one vacancy there, unless someone sleeps on it the next couple of days and decides that they would like to be involved. If there's no one comes forward by Friday, next meeting we'll change the change.
Yep. So it's Councillor Kidd plus the charter change.
All in favour? Yes, thank you. The next one is the Airport Community Committee. Chairperson is Councillor Romano. On that is Councillor Miletto, Councillor Munro.
3 councillors.
Yeah.
Miletto were there with Councillor.
So you'll move that, Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, I'll move.
We have a seconder for that? Seconded Councillor Duffy.
Matter if you want to go on it, you can go on it.
That's all right. It's all good. It's all good. It's all
And,
good. Don't worry.
Yep.
All in favour? Against, thank you. The next one is the Clifton Grove Community Committee. Its chairperson is Councillor McRae, one other councillor. 4. That's, well, it's pretty obvious who should be on that.
Councillor Turner, I'll nominate.
Yeah, right.
Oh, thanks very much, Councillor.
Question from the Councillor McRae.
Right, I was just going to suggest, I know Councillor Turner has in the past declined, but if he's keen to come along, great. Otherwise, I'd be happy to see that requirement be changed to amend the charter.
No, he's chafing at the bit, actually.
Glad to see it.
So I'll second that. All in favour? Thanks, Councillor Turner.
Councillor Turner.
The Economic Development Committee, which meets tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Councillor Miletto is the chairperson. I'm on that, as is Councillor Whitten. Yep. Okay.
Need to change.
No need to change.
That's correct.
The Lucknow Community Committee chair is Councillor Miletto, and the other member was Councillor Prevatira. It only needs one councillor, so unless someone else wants to be...
That means one additional councillor
One additional
required.
councillor required.
No nominees.
When do you
amended.
meet, Councillor Miletto?
It's not as frequent as the.
Yeah, quarterly. I'll put my name forward for that. Do I get a seconder? Councillor Nugent. All in favour? Thank you. The Parks, Trees and Waterways Community Committee I chair, and there's Councillor Nugent and there was Councillor Prevatera. Would love to see another councillor on this also.
When do you meet, Mr Mayor?
We were meeting bi-monthly, but we haven't had a meeting for about 4 or 5 months at least.
Afternoon meeting or a morning meeting?
It's usually 5:30.
I love trees. I'll go on that, Mr Mayor. I don't mind trees.
All right. Councillor Hamling, you've got a seconder for Councillor Hamling?
Move some out there at the sports ground.
Councillor Whitten, all in favour?
Like you.
Aye. Yes, thank you. How's that? Thanks,
Great to be on.
councillors. Thanks very much
You, Mr Mayor, we just need a mover and seconder for the whole.
for the whole lot. Move Councillor Mileto, second Councillor Whitten, all in favour? Thank you very much. 5.5 is strategic policy review.
You move it, Mr Mayor.
Move Councillor Duffy, seconded Councillor Munro.
Or exhibition, yep.
That's for exhibition. All in favour? Hands up. Wow. And is it a delight to have code of conduct report that there's nothing to report?
Mayor,
Can I make a comment on that, Mr
question on that, and you might be the man to answer
I'll
this.
move it anyway for discussion.
Yeah,
Mr.
second it.
Seconds.
Move Councillor Hamlin, seconded Councillor.
But Mr Mayor, I know it's a broad question, but it's a matter arising out of it is priority weeds policy. Mr Mayor, do you know personally, or does our staff know, I mean, the proliferation now of Cape weed, has that been a response to the dust storms, or I've never seen so much in Orange, never ever.
Look, if I can answer that, look, lots and lots of people being. Cape weed is one of those weeds got a prolific seed that can sit in the ground for many, many years, up to, they reckon, 30 odd years, but it'd be extended beyond that now. What happens if you get, particularly after a drought, a dry time when your ground cover's been decimated, virtually ideal conditions for it. It's not a very good competitor, believe it or not. Once you get your lawns re-established and other things, you'll notice less Cape weed. It's not a good competitor. But if the ground is barren, get that moisture, it will come back. Now, I'd suggest next year, if we have a normal spring, reasonable something, you won't see as much, but there'll still be seed in the ground.
No, it's just a lot of people have been asking me, and there is a lot of theory about it coming in with the recent dust storms.
No, it's already exists there. The two things that happened in the last season, there's two things that happened in this district in particular. Seen a proliferation of Patterson's curse also. This year we haven't seen much, and there is a biological agent out there now, but because of the decimation of ground cover, there was a lot of Patterson's curse also. It came late, so you didn't notice it. You didn't notice the flower, but a lot of the big leaf, long stuff, that's Patterson's curse, mainly in paddocks, not so much in lawns. But cape weed everywhere, on the sides of roads, in people's lawns, in parks and gardens and out there. And I'd suggest next year with a reasonable season you'll see the same amount. But it'll be there.
Is mow it. Tell us how you take the seed before it goes.
All right, all in favour?
With mower.
Thank you.
Code of conduct.
Over to 5.
I think we need it.
5.7, project. Asked them all.
Deal with the matter arising from five.
Sorry,
I asked for
sorry, I'm
5.6. Put
confused.
your hands
Sorry.
up. All in favour? Against? Thank you. 5.7 is project activities. The recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Just a question, Mr Mayor, on page 169 regarding Anzac Park. Indication there that it's been put out to tender. Could I ask, has the tender process closed? And did we have any tenderers or what?
Last piece, Mr Maunder. What page are you on, Councillor?
169, up towards the top, third one down.
Third one down. Anzac Park, BMX demolition of BMX track. I'll ask Director Maunder.
Through you, Mr Chair, yes, that has gone to market. We have four. We've received 4 quotes and another quote that we sought. I'll be bringing a report back to council on that, and and seek their direction. The costs were significant, so we'll need to bring that back to council to make the determination as to what to do.
None were within our budget frame.
Now, the budget was a fairly loose estimate, and we went to market, and the range was significant in the quotes, and all the quotes were high. It's not a decision. It was a lot higher than what we thought it might be, and we then checked that again with our tech services department and sought another quote, and they were all a lot higher. So I need to bring that to council to make a decision.
Councillor Nugent.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I don't know whether this is the first. Is this the first time we've had this report? Because I just want to say I think it's really an excellent addition to our reporting, and I just wonder, are we going to get it on a monthly basis, quarterly basis?
We are. The CEO and myself discussed this, and this is the first one, and I'll hand over to him now to tell you how often you're going to get it.
We've got a very ambitious building year with the budget, so my idea was to get everything down on the one table. And I know that for councillors, it's one of the most common questions you have to field is, where is Project X up to? So look, I'm all ears whether you'd like to see this monthly. It's not hard to do. Whether you'd like to see it bi-monthly or quarterly, it is not hard to do. It's a good discipline for us as well.
If it's not hard to do and we can, it's only, 3 pages, 4 pages, I'd like to see it monthly if possible.
I'd just like to see one other column, because a lot of these are planned. The other column is the way, and the other column's completed.
And I do have a question on one of the items, just the painting of the old netball courts on the bottom of page 169.
Yeah.
I sort of go past there quite regularly, and I think that's a great project, and I'm just wondering, I see it's planning and it's in the budget. What's next?
Oh, Mr. Chair, I think I'll ask Mr. Maunder to give us a rough timing. The difficulty with this report will be if councillors ask for dates the whole time, because dates will come and go and priorities will change. So
I'm not looking for a specific date.
But happy during these meetings to field a few questions.
Is it far away there?
Director Maunder, is it close?
On the netball courts, on the painting for the bike education. So we engaged with the person that wrote to us, raising it before the budget process. We've completed a design on that. And so we're just going to see what we can do internally with our staff before going out to market. But it's not far away. We can't paint it in winter conditions. So as soon as we get some warmer weather, we'll conduct those works. So it'll happen this side of Christmas.
Good. Excellent. I've got a couple here if I can. Mr. Greenham, at the back there. First of all, there is some repairs that obviously need doing on the Northern Distributor Road. There's a few places where we've got subsidence. You hold, that's one. And at some of those roundabouts, the signs have been demolished or run or crashed into, fixing the directional signs, and I'll show you where they are. And the other one is Bowman's, Cargo Road to Escort Way, and the third one is under footpaths. And this has been going on for a number of years. That's I'm pretty sure it's Gardner Road. Gardner Road between Peasley and Anson Street doesn't have a footpath on either side of the road. I think it's an area where quite a few people live, both old and young, but it is one of the streets that's got no footpath on either side of the road. Can we have a look at where we can put that into the planning somewhere? There is at least 2 or 3 people up there that continually about not having a footpath. One person, I think, got a walker, and the other person got into trouble for parking the car on the road, footpath, whatever it is. But it is a thing with no footpath on either side. And can I ask, in the deliberations with your crew, what priority is given to high traffic areas where there's no footpath versus reasonably high traffic areas where there's at least a footpath on one side of the road? Because I would have thought a footpath, at least on one side of the road, would come before a footpath on both sides of the road.
Exactly. And if you have a look on page 173
Yep.
and go roughly about a quarter of the way down the page, you'll see that there's new footpath works planned for Gardner Road.
And that's it, is it?
From Peasley to Lords and
man.
Lords to Anson
On you.
in the two blocks.
Holy dooly. Thank you very much. That was
No
a
worries.
Dorothy Dixer, actually.
I was going to say, was that
The
a
others I'll
Dorothy
take.
Dixon?
Mr Mayor?
Good.
That's efficiency. I like that. Councillor Leto.
A matter arising from that, Mr Mayor, I'm not whether there's any appetite sort of put a light in the middle of the roundabout, the Elephant Park there on the corner of Woodward Street and and what's the other one?
Yeah, Wentworth Lane.
Thank you,
yeah.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah,
The reason I say that is because when I drove past there today, I noticed that somebody hasn't seen the roundabout in the middle of the road and ran straight into it.
Right.
Knocked the sign over. So I'm just wondering when that happened and is it a light issue there? If so, can it be addressed?
Yeah, good point, Councillor. That was brought up to me 2 weeks ago, actually, and I had a look. Yeah, can we actually have a look at that? That's a terrific roundabout, but at night time, particularly if there's not much moon or so,
What if you
it's
try and
very
drive
difficult
across
to
it?
see.
Take that on notice, Mr Mayor. Take it on notice.
Yeah, I've got to correct you on that. It's not a terrific roundabout because I get complaints every day about it being 2 lanes. It should be just 1 lane all the way around it.
Well, I get all these
I've got
people
to
saying how fantastic it is and it's easy to get around with 2 lanes.
I mean, I want to go back to what Councillor Turner's comment was about. We said we had some quotes on the demolition of the bike thing over there in Thingbob. When are those quotes going to come to us and when are we going to make a decision on? That's one of the questions that you asked before. There's a lot of things. When are they going to happen? Those type of things there.
Bring that to your next meeting, Councillor.
September the 1st.
Okay. Any others on that? Yeah, and thanks if you can pass on to yourself and the staff. I think that's again, it's a good way. That's something we can pull out of our minutes and keep it home. We know what is going. Thank you for that. 5.8 are minutes of the Audit and Risk Management Committee held on the 29th of May. Moved Councillor Munro, seconded Councillor Whitten. Councillor
Thank you,
Mileto.
Mr Mayor. Just a matter arising for this, and it's I guess it goes to financial risk, and I thank Mr. Imbera for his comprehensive report. My concerns are regarding the risk to council, and what I'd like to do is request a risk audit report for all council-owned sporting amenity buildings to identify the presence of asbestos contained in the broken fibro, etc., due to vandalism. The reason being that I'm concerned about the exposure to the residents, ratepayers and players at various venues around Orange. In particular, Jack Brabham Park, where council are obviously looking at upgrading there, but also when I went to Perry yesterday with yourself, Mr Mayor, and also Councillor Taylor, I noticed the amount of broken fibro and it appears it may have asbestos in it. So I'm interested to know what other buildings, sporting amenities owned by council are experiencing the same problem, which I would suggest, Mr Mayor, needs urgent attention. Can we have a report come back to council?
Yeah, well, if
to
you move
identify
that
those
way, I'll
buildings?
second it because
Absolutely.
we do
Yep, we
part
can
of
do
this that's quite important, and yeah, that'd be worthwhile looking at all our sporting facilities and the showground,
Yep.
and the caravan park.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mr. Could I just say one thing, Mr. Chair? We do have an asbestos register for all of our buildings, so I will largely use that to bring it back to you. So rest assured, we are on top of that issue.
In that report, and I haven't seen the report obviously, will it identify a capital works list as to when council are going to address the issues of broken fibro asbestos on those buildings?
It can. I can do a priority list. Yep. Take that on notice and bring a report back. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Okay, all in favour? Against? Thank you. And we have an Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting this Friday. and all are welcome to it. It starts usually 9. 5.9 is the initial categorisation of council-managed Crown lands, 325.
Recommendation.
We've got a mover, Councillor Whitten. Who was the second? Councillor Turner. Councillor Turner?
Question, Mr Mayor, on page 328. Things there of Civic Square Reserve. Where are we up to applying to the state government for a change in classification, or if that's the right word, for that land, not only for the art gallery but also for the conservatorium? I understood they had to be rezoned.
Yep, good question.
Mr Chair, I'm going to have to take that on notice. If you don't mind, Councillor Turner, unless any of my fellow... No, take that on notice, Mr Chair, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Councillor Turner. Councillor Nugent?
Happy to support the recommendation, but I'm just interested in how 5.9 and 5.12 work together. Like they're two separate items which seem to be dealing. And I know we're getting to 5.12 a little bit later, but I can just have some clarification about how those two reports work together.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So the first report talks about categorisation. So the Crown Land Management Act replaces a whole heap of other acts. So under that new act, we have to categorise land. So the categorisation deals with things like Brabham being categorised as a general community use sporting facility. Second report deals with the difference between community land and operational land. So we need to then categorise those sites as well. So that deals with getting those sites named as operational land because they fit a more operational purpose, such as the Royal Fire Service building and the cemetery.
Just a follow-up question there. Ones.
In the Civic? That's right, yeah.
Yes.
No, not necessarily. We'll have to check on the other item. There's a couple of things under the Crown Land Management Act about what the uses are, so that I think is what Councillor Turner might be referring to. Permissible uses under the Act.
Okay. Thank you. All in favour? Against? Thank you. 5.10 is a request for financial assistance from the Orange Wine Festival.
It's a question. We'll have to move it for
Need
discussion.
a mover and seconder. I move Councillor Turner, seconder.
Discussion.
Councillor Nugent. Question. Councillor Munro.
Yeah, I just wonder, as far as the fact that we may not have the event and what happens in old money.
Mr Redmond's done this quite a few times, Chair, through COVID. Got a fair process.
Yeah, so through you, Mr Mayor, the process we're using is some of these events will have some sort of planning money used, so they may use a portion of this, but then if the event doesn't proceed, then we'll ask for a refund on that balance.
Does that apply to the Australian National Field Days?
Yeah, it would. I don't know how far they got.
No, because we knocked that back because it wasn't going this year. We knocked it back to next year. We need a bit of consistency in what we do with these because, in fact, I've been approached saying, well, look, hold it. We didn't know that we're going to have to postpone until next year and we still got a lot of planning to do, etc. and so forth. But a council resolution was we knocked them back and they reapply next year. Mr. Sear.
Oh, I was just going to say on that, I encouraged the field days people to put a submission in to that effect rather than put it off for 1 year. So they were encouraged, if they had a case for expenses, that council would consider that. Sorry.
I've just got a question. My first question is to a way that we can not refuse this? I'm not going to support it. Number one, because we've gone through a number of things here. Cancelled netball, the Millthorpe Markets, Australian National Field Days, the Ashley Cup now, grads and formals and all these type of things. You see happening in Bathurst everywhere. There's in front of dollars. We've done this before. Here's with the thing, but I don't want to refuse it. I think why can't we leave it for 6 months?
Depending whether it's on.
That's where I'm coming from, and I'm looking for consistency.
Councillor McRae, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor McRae. Sorry.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I do share some of Councillor Duffy's concerns regarding the running of events, but I will note that to date, most of the events which have been cancelled have been primarily large-scale events, or they've been volunteer-led events, and I think they've been particularly hampered by not being able to meet under the current circumstances. This is one of the items which has caused me some particular toing and froing. I mean, there's a reason that I'm not coming to the chamber, and that's to, minimise my attendance at large group events. And I think there's this balance between what we choose to do personally and what we are funding or what we're approving under council policy. So perhaps, and it was suggested to me by a community member, that the policy recommendation that the staff have assessed this on still stands. What we may indeed need is further advice and perhaps some specific COVID policy relating to these type of events. But this event is proposed to be run under COVID-safe operations. Indeed, we approved last meeting for an altitude event, which included an expansion to the wine festival of people going from one vineyard to another, to cellar door under buses of a new 250-person event. And that was through the traffic committee. So in some ways, council isn't in itself banning any events, but what we are doing is providing funding to encourage tourists. That, I think, has our community on its toes. That is a real divisive issue. The challenge is whether we want to continue to follow our policies or make these decisions on the run. And I'd be really interested in what other councillors have to say. My gut feeling is we need to stick with the policies that we have so that we're not seen as discriminating against particular industries or events. But on the other hand, what is our responsibility for public health, keeping in mind that that's a state government responsibility? So shouldn't we let them be making those decisions and then working with our community to help enforce them and guide them?
Thanks, Councillor McRae. Councillor Dunn.
I just want to go back to the issue of tourists, and I know Councillor Taylor mentioned the previous mention, a couple of others mentioned as well. We had signs down in Summer Street welcoming visitors. I don't disagree with that. When we have these events, a lot of these people don't come from this area here. They come from the hotspots in Sydney. And that's what worries me. That's what's worrying Bathurst and other councils. I don't have a problem with funding it, but I don't want to fund it now or next week or next month or whatever it is. I wanted to wait a bit of time because there is talk of a vaccine. I'm not a COVID king or queen or whatever it is. I know nothing about it. I just hope to God I don't get it. For some people don't have any reaction. But I'm more concerned about the health of the elderly and everyone else that can get it and it peaks. That's where my concern is. I'm not too worried about the dollars. That doesn't worry me in the least. Everyone has to have burdens on those issues, but my concern is I want to put health of everyone in the Central West because we've been blessed so far. We haven't had it out here. The only ones that have come out here are people that have brought it here, overseas or have come here from Sydney and the doctor and those type of things there. That's what I want to protect. It's quite good that we can walk down the streets, see some of the shops packed, local people shopping and those type of things. So I don't have a problem with that at all. And I think you'll find if you read the papers, Bathurst have gone down that pathway as well. They're even thinking of putting in sanctions if they can. I don't know. But I'm saying, look, I don't have a problem giving 10 grand or whatever the figure is, but let's leave it a little while and assess what the situation is.
Councillor Hamling, was it? And then, Councillor Whitten.
I can't get back down again.
Only back in, sir.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think the fact is that staff have achieved meeting the policy. It's up to us in this chamber to decide whether we approve the recommendation or not. And irregardless of whether we vote for it or against it, this event will still go ahead or may not go ahead, right? I shouldn't imagine that if we don't approve the $10,000 that it wouldn't go ahead, Mr Chair.
So go.
So I think the debate is about we're all very conscious of the fact that we are in a pandemic, and are we going to support giving them $10,000 for an event that will probably go ahead without it anyway, or not? That's the question. Put this all in a individually vision of whether we are supporting an event to bring people into the community, which we've always fought for whilst ever I've been on this council, but at the moment we're in a different bubble. Got to be careful about attracting people into the community, and I don't want to say that, but that's just a fact. That's just a fact of life at the moment.
Look, I'll move for a deferral to see if it is actually on or not. And speaking of that, can I just say I don't agree with totally what everyone said. I think there's a terrific event on in Orange at the moment. It's called the Regional Stedford. Right across to our right-hand side here, and the left-hand side is a Regional Stedford, with people coming to Orange with their young ones, singing, etc. and so forth. But they are operating under horrific COVID rules, and I'm not going to get into this debate about we close up and we don't allow people into Orange and all this sort of stuff. I think there's no way of actually doing that. You operate within the rules and the best that you possibly can. I don't want to get in a debate to say, hey, no one's allowed into Orange, so who can come in? Because then you'll have the exception, oh, well, my auntie's coming and she's all right. My good friend's coming here and they're all right. Or my or my daughter's at the Stedford. That's right. Really think about what we're saying. It's very easy to say we're stopping anyone coming here. I agree with looking at some sort of regulations that are on people moving out of hotspots. Totally, I agree with that. I also agree with things like saying making it mandatory to wear masks and all sorts of things like that. But I do not support this I'll call it discussion that's going on social media, etc., and other places at the moment. We should not be allowing people to come into Orange, which Bathurst did. I think that's a very, very dangerous precedent to actually take, because where do you stop? There's a lot of people in Orange that work in Bathurst and Canowindra and Cowra, and there's a lot of people from Bathurst and those places that work in Orange, and they include people that work in medicine, that work in the mines, that work in retail and a whole host of other things. Where do you draw the line and say who's a visit Orange and who's not a visit Orange? You know, it'd be very hard to say, look, no, anyone coming up from such and such to a wine event, you can't come, but no, if you're coming here, well, coming to the football, you can. So I'd like a lot more direction from government before I would commit myself to saying we don't want this and don't want that happening. I think Orange is placed in a very good position because I think our medical fraternity have been very, very upfront, and we've been able to get the message about what we do. We've done that as a council with a number of staff working from home. Also, how we're meeting now and having the option of either being here socially distanced or Zooming in. And in other events, I went to a sporting event on the weekend, as Councillor Hamling was there also, checking people coming through the gate, washing your hands, social distancing, the whole lot of things. And, until there's a further direction in a different way, I think that's what we do. Deferral. Until we see whether it's on or not. Did someone second that? Someone did second? Yeah.
When's the deferral to?
September the 18th. Yeah. 15th, September the 15th, I'm sorry.
My question was really the same question. When's the deferral to? Because the
September the 15th.
Event on the 2nd starts on the 2nd of October. Yeah. And I'm happy to support the deferral, Mr. Mayor. I'm a bit torn, as Councillor McRae was saying on this one. It talks about 10,000 participants. I think the majority of those, well, a lot of those people would be from Sydney. Obviously, we can't close the doors to people, and we also have to think of our local businesses that will benefit from those 10,000 participants coming, many of whom will be coming to Orange from elsewhere. So it's a really difficult one.
Yeah.
I'm happy to support the deferral.
Yeah.
I think, Mr Mayor, if I may, a question. Sorry, Councillor Hamlin.
Sorry.
But I think the community need to be aware that we don't, as a council, we don't have the authority to stop people, Australians, we don't have the authority to stop Australians coming to our city. And I think that needs to be made, they need to be made aware of
I think it's a very good point, Councillor Whitten. I think there's two things that I found frustrating over the last month. One is that look at all this water going over the spillway on Lake Canobolas, going into Orange water supplies. It goes into Molong Creek, goes into the Bell River and goes into Macquarie. Got nothing to do with water in Orange. People saying, holy dooly, look at all this. Incorrect. And I think secondly is that we have legislative powers to say you can't come into Orange. You don't have that power.
Okay, so it's if we're helping fund something, are we betting it?
No.
I mean,
No.
The other year we will, yeah.
Mr Mayor, just quickly, I suppose it all comes back to the event now. The onus comes on the event to see how they run it. And, you know, if anything does go majorly wrong, it's back to that event. So I'm as long as it's COVID run properly, I'm happy to give money to that. And obviously, you know, we don't want the checks and balances would be done from people coming from COVID hotspots, as you've said. So, yeah, it goes back to each individual event now to how they run it.
Councillor Turner.
Supporting the deferment, providing got an assurance that if we then decide to donate the money, that they'll still be able to use it efficiently. It's on page 335, part of in their application, they acknowledge that the festival won't be able to hold its large signature events such as the night market, etc. But they've got alternative smaller events, etc., etc. So you talk to the retailers in Orange for the last month. We've had all the hotels, all the motels and the Airbnbs and whatever booked out. We've welcomed those people because we can't close our city down. We have to take precautions. And we've all got the precautions on the borders and they've all been legally challenged, etc., etc. But I think most people are responsible. As far as the wine festival is concerned, it's taken a number of years to build up the momentum. As most of you know, I was up in Queensland a couple of weeks ago and talking to one of the other people in the apartments where we were. Where are you from? I said, from Orange. Oh, yeah, great place. I come up there for your wine and food nearly every year and things like that. So we can't stop that momentum. Yes, let's take all the precautions we possibly can. The organisers have acknowledged there won't be the big events. They're conscious of it also. So I'll support the deferment. But
only to the 15th.
I think if we'd have voted on tonight, I would have voted to.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. So look, I'll put all in favour of the deferment. Against? Thank you very, very much. Can I just say on that, you know, it's terribly hard. You know, in the last 2 months, people say it's just about food and wine. It's not. You know, we've had directed to us. They've called off 3 major sporting events that Orange had. State championships here in Orange, and the relevant bodies have cancelled those in Orange. That was an indoor girls or women's hockey, basketball. What was the other one?
Netball, was it?
Netball one, I think. Yeah, netball. Netball, you know, and that's really going to hit.
And I think Nublar's announced today.
Nublar's been cancelled.
All festivals.
Councillor Melita.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I'd just like to commend our local motels. Several weeks ago, it was only 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had some football teams come up from Sydney, and I was talking to the people and asked where they come from, and they told me, and it was on the fringe of a hotspot, and they did all the relevant health stuff and etc. But I asked them where did they stay, and they said, well, we didn't stay anywhere. And I said, why was that? And they said, because they rang up a couple of motels, and when they found out where they were from, they were reluctant to take them. So I guess, that has advantages and disadvantages. But what it does show me is how serious our motels are taking the situation, and they're also mindful of the impact that allowing people who coming from areas of risk may have on the local economy. So I'd just like to acknowledge the work that our motels are doing in trying to protect this city from coming here or spreading.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Mileto. 5.11, excuse me, is extension of tenure of the independent members of the audit.
Hang it, Mr Mayor.
Move Councillor Nugent, seconded Councillor Munro. All in favour? Thank you. 5.12 is the classification of council managed Crown lands as operational land. Move Councillor Munro, seconded Councillor Nugent. All in favour? Aye, against, thank you. 5.13 is the development application DA 356/2019 in brackets 149 Bing Street. Move Councillor Munro. Seconded Councillor Nugent. All in favour? Against? No one against. Thank you. 5.14 is the development application DA 140/202 in brackets 1, 5 to 17, 46 to 60 Edward Street.
Second.
Move
Councillor Mileto, seconded Councillor Turner. Councillor Nugent, question?
Question. I know it's probably not particularly part of this DA, but it does talk in here about the cleaning up of the contamination. That's something that's going on by the applicants, I think, in conjunction with the EPA. Just wondering, do we get any reports, feedback about that process and how it's proceeding?
My word. Give us a little brief there.
Okay, so through you, Mr Mayor, the site is declared under the Protection of Environment Operations Act as a significantly contaminated site, and the authority to manage that is not council, it is the EPA. So the applicant or the owners are required to prepare certain documents and enter into agreements with the EPA, which they've done, and that includes remediation plans. So status of those plans, look, they're progressing, and that will take some time to go ahead. This development application before you tonight doesn't change that, even though every DA that we consider, we always consider contaminated lands. I appreciate what you're asking about is the contamination on its own. This one is just really use of from the slab above, so it won't change the impact of groundwater, which was the contamination issue from many years ago, and that will continue to be managed by the EPA in Sydney.
Yeah, I suppose my question was more about
their documents, all the documents around the assessment and management of that site are put on the EPA's public website. So anybody can check it. It's public information there. We have a number of reports with us they submitted the same reports to us as they did the EPA. Initially, it's been a few years since we've got them, but yes.
Okay, all in favour? Aye, against, thank you. You are aware the only hold-ups there at the moment is the equipment, and the people to commission it can't get into Australia. It was about 30-odd jobs, so there's quite a lengthy delay in that starting. And we've had discussions with our federal member, letter that's gone back to the Minister for Immigration or whatever it's called, Border Force and so forth, to see if we can somehow support getting them in there to commission it under the proper regulations. 5.15, I should say, is the federal Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program and Resources for Regions project. Councillor Munro. Second, Councillor Romano.
You actually have to select projects.
Select the projects.
Yeah.
The staff recommendation there, Mr Mayor.
So you're moving the staff recommendations, are you?
Yes.
Councillor Duffy, you'll moved it, you've seconded, Councillor Martin, the staff recommendation. Councillor Duffy?
I want to discuss about it. I'm not real fussed about the. But my question is a matter arising when you read the letters that have come there. Talk about the resources for regions. One of the reasons why we're in the related council is because out of from our area here, from over $1 billion or more from there. So I can't see why we're not hammering more. Listen, I gratefully accept every bit of money that comes to us, doesn't matter where it comes from. Sometimes I think we're being dudded by not getting a lot. Now, I acknowledge the Mayor efforts the other week when Councillor, sorry, not Councillor Greenham, what's his name? Popped up and said that we got the funding of the $5 million, not from any grant application. We got it from your hard work. When you had people complaining about the rise that the Mayor got, he paid for that for the next 15 years for whoever the Mayor is. But I just wonder whether we're putting enough pressure on this government. I don't give a damn which one it is. They've all been pinching it. They're all different reasons. I mean, they've taken an awful amount of money from here.
And can I guarantee you, Councillor Duffy, that we're not backwards in going forward with state or federal government about trying to shake every two bob out of them. I can guarantee you I spent 3 hours yesterday with the Deputy Prime Minister. We've got the Minister for Resources and Water here, which is mining, on Thursday, and I'll be doing the same shakedown. I ended up on Monday with a personal phone number to text through our priority on 3 or 4 projects, and almost got a guarantee if I shut up, we might get something. That's the best way sometimes to make a bit of noise.
Guarantee we might.
Yeah, and I think as far as the state is concerned, if anyone read the Telegraph, I think yesterday or today, we get a mention in that of getting that extra water money. Their environmental reporter wrote in there about Origin seem to be getting a fair bit of money for water, which is good. We'll keep shaking that water tree also. Councillor Maletta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right there. Oh, sorry, Councillor McRae. Councillor Maletta, I'll just let Councillor. Sorry, it's my fault. It's hard to look up there. Sorry, Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to comment that it seems like there's a good range of projects, particularly noting the Hockey Centre car park. I know I've had a few calls from people quite keen to see some money put into the Hockey Centre. And interestingly, Councillor Miletto previously asked about council facilities as sporting organisations use, which are, subject to asbestos. And I know the hockey building is one. So at least showing a bit of love to the car park and security lighting would go a long way for the 1,000 or so players for hockey. I'm no longer a player due to career-ending injuries, but I do know a lot of people who'll be pleased to see that. And also particularly seeing the support for more toilet amenities, something that we often get a hard time for. Good to see funding being put towards those. But I would suggest I'd be interested in what the mechanisms for success and measurement of the resilience project would be. It's often hard to get projects into schools, and it's perhaps something that I could follow up with the relevant director once that's funded. But I'd be interested as to how there's a measure of how that resilience project is rolled out and how we measure that the funds are well spent and what the levels of engagement might be expected to be for that $100,000 investment.
Good point. Thanks, Councillor McRae and Councillor Maletta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess what I was going to speak about was that youth resilience project to the Orange School students. I don't think that we can underestimate the support that needs to be given to our youth in times like this. Certainly, Orange and people will know of, who have children. I know of somebody who's either attempted self-harm or attempted self-harm or been successful in self-harm, and the impact that has on our community can't be underestimated. I think it's okay to say, look, we're going to allocate X amount of dollars for hockey or toilets or whatever, but I think the most important thing for our community is our youth and the fact that we are acknowledging that we're able to support them to this tune. And I think it's a wonderful thing. How that is measured, I guess time will tell. But the fact is that we are recognising that there are concerns there, and I really do support number 4, and I would like to see what impact that does have, and etc. So I really do commend number 4.
Thanks, Councillor Murdo. I think we all agree with you totally. And I think it's not so much in primary school at the moment, but I really do feel for the young people doing their trial high school certificates and school certificates coming up. To get the news yesterday, they can't have graduation ceremonies or end of term parties or all sorts of things. I would have been devastated. I would never passed. And I do feel for them. And I think I said last meeting, and you know, in the last 2 weeks, there's been 3 young people all doing school certificate this year in Sydney that have unfortunately taken their lives. 2 young ladies and a young man. Just the ones I know of, and that's scary. Oh, all in favour? Against? Thank you very, very much. Now we'll move to a closed meeting. The Chief Executive Officer will advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by a closed meeting of Orange City Council.
There have not been any submissions, Mr Mayor.
In accordance with the Local Government Act of 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation of 2005, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, following business is of a kind as referred to in section 10A brackets 2 of the Act and should be dealt with in a confidential session of council meeting closed to press and the public. Items to be considered are 6.1, the sale of 24 Astle Drive, Orange; 6.2, a tender for construction of Orange Regional Gallery extension; and 6.3, tender stage 2 internal fit out of the animal shelter. The reason for confidentiality are these. The items are classified confidential under the provisions of section 10A brackets 2 brackets C. Information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business who supplied it. I will just have to be excused for a few minutes, so I'll ask Councillor